My brother blocked the church entrance with his body, his face red with something between grief and rage. "You're not welcome here, Lauren. Dad's funeral is for family only." I stood on the steps in the black dress I'd bought that morning, holding the program I'd been handed before someone realized who I was. Behind Marcus, I could see my mother in the front pew, my sister Claire beside her, both of them turning to watch this confrontation like I was the disruption, not the daughter who'd driven 4 hours to say goodbye. "I'm his daughter," I said quietly. "I have every right. You lost that right when you abandoned him." Marcus's voice carried across the parking lot. "Mom doesn't want you here. None of us do. Leave." I could have argued, could have pushed past him, could have made a scene that would have validated everything they'd been saying about me for the past 10 years. Instead, I pulled out my phone and called the number I'd saved that morning. The estate attorney who'd left me 3 voicemails I'd been too grief-stricken to return. "Mr. Peterson, this is Lauren Mitchell. I'm ready to discuss my father's estate now, and I'm standing outside his funeral, where my family just banned me from attending." What happened in the next 6 hours didn't just give me access to my father's funeral, it revealed exactly why my family had been so desperate to keep me away. Before I tell you how a funeral ban became an estate reading and family exclusion exposed a decade of lies, hit like and tell me, have you ever been kept from a funeral, only to discover you had legal authority no one told you about? Because that day, I learned that the people most eager to control the narrative around death are often the ones most afraid of what the deceased actually wanted. They say funerals are for the living, but sometimes the living don't want witnesses to their revisionist history. My name is Lauren Mitchell. I'm 36, and I spent the last decade of my father's life being erased from family history while I built a life he was secretly proud of. I grew up in Charleston, South Carolina, the middle child in a family where roles were assigned early and enforced brutally. My older brother Marcus was the golden son, followed Dad into the family construction business, married young, provided grandchildren. My younger sister Claire was the baby, the one who could do no wrong, who stayed close to home and close to Mom's influence. I was the one who left, who went to college out of state, who built a career in environmental law that my family saw as a betrayal of everything Dad stood for. "Tree hugger," my father would say at Thanksgiving dinners, not quite joking, trying to put people like me out of business. When I moved to Oregon at 26 for a job with the EPA, my mother declared it abandonment. When I married someone they'd never met, a kind man named David, who worked in sustainable architecture, they didn't come to the wedding. When I had my daughter Emma 3 years ago, they met her exactly once, and my mother spent the visit commenting on how different she looked from real Mitchell babies. I'd made peace with the distance, sent cards, called on birthdays, invited them to visit. The invitations went unanswered. The calls went to voicemail. The cards, I assume, went in the trash. What I didn't know was that my father and I had been talking the whole time. He'd found me on email 2 years ago. Simple message: "Your mother doesn't know I have this address. Can we talk?" We'd been corresponding ever since. Every week, sometimes more. He asked about my work, my daughter, my life. Told me he was proud of the lawyer I'd become, even if he disagreed with half my cases. "You fight for what you believe in," he wrote 6 months ago. That's more Mitchell than Marcus will ever be. When he died last Tuesday, sudden heart attack, 72 years old, I found out from his lawyer, not my family. They hadn't called, hadn't texted. I only knew because Thomas Peterson, Esquire, left a voicemail saying he needed to speak with me urgently regarding my father's estate and my role as executor. I'd assumed it was a mistake, some clerical error. Marcus would be executor. Marcus was always in charge of everything related to Dad. I was wrong. The funeral was scheduled for Saturday. I'd learned the details from the obituary I'd found online, since no one had bothered to inform me directly. I called my mother's house Thursday night. Claire answered. "Mom doesn't want to talk to you," she said before I could speak. "I'm calling about Dad's funeral. I'm driving down on Saturday. You're not invited." "It's a funeral, Claire. I don't need an invitation. He's my father." "He was your father when it was convenient for you. When you needed tuition money or a wedding gift you never thanked us for. But when he needed family around him, you were in Oregon saving trees. That's not fair. What's not fair is you showing up now, pretending you cared, trying to make this about you." Her voice was cold in a way that reminded me of our mother. "We've planned a beautiful service for family and friends who actually knew him, who were actually there. You'll just be a distraction." "Claire, don't come, Lauren. You're not welcome." She hung up. I sat in my Oregon kitchen, 3 time zones and a lifetime away, and realized I had a choice: respect their wishes and mourn alone, or show up anyway and face whatever they threw at me. Then I remembered the lawyer's voicemail, the one about the estate. Thomas Peterson answered on the first ring Friday morning. Miss Mitchell, thank you for calling back. I'm very sorry for your loss. Thank you. Mr. Peterson, I need to ask, your voicemail mentioned I'm named as executor? That has to be a mistake. My brother Marcus would be. Your father was very specific. You are named as executor and primary beneficiary of his estate. Your brother and sister are provided for, but you have complete authority over all estate matters, including the funeral arrangements. The room tilted. I'm sorry, what? Your father updated his will 18 months ago. He named you executor, left you the house in Charleston, his investment accounts, and his share of the business. Your siblings receive equal cash distributions, but you control how and when. Why didn't anyone tell me? Your father instructed me not to contact you unless absolutely necessary, until after his death, he said. Peterson paused. He said your family would make things difficult, and he wanted you to have legal authority before they knew what he'd planned. They don't know. I informed your mother and siblings Wednesday. Your mother was quite upset. She's threatening to contest the will. On what grounds? She claims you manipulated your father while he was ill. That he wasn't in his right mind when he made these changes. He wasn't ill, was he? No, ma'am. He was in perfect health when he drafted this will. He had a full cognitive assessment done to prevent exactly this kind of challenge. The will is ironclad. I thought about my mother's anger, my siblings' exclusion, the funeral ban that suddenly made terrible sense. They don't want me at the funeral because they're afraid I'll assert my authority. That would be my assessment, Peterson said carefully. What are my actual rights here? As executor, you have the authority to make all funeral arrangements. If they've planned something contrary to your father's wishes, what were his wishes? He wanted you there. He was very clear about that. He also left specific instructions about the service, which I believe your family has not followed. I looked at the clock. The funeral was tomorrow at 2 p.m. I had 28 hours to decide what kind of daughter I wanted to be, and what kind of executor I needed to be. I showed up at 1:30 p.m., early enough to handle what needed handling before the service started. Thomas Peterson met me in the parking lot with a leather portfolio, the will, the executor documents, and a letter your father wrote for you to read if this exact scenario occurred. He handed me an envelope with my name in Dad's handwriting. I opened it right there, standing next to my rental car. Lauren, if you're reading this, I'm gone and your mother has probably told you to stay away. Don't listen to her. I know we didn't have the relationship we should have had while I was alive. I know I let your mother and your siblings convince me you were the problem, when really you were the only one brave enough to live your own life. I've left you in charge because you're the only one I trust to do what's right, not what's easy. You're the only one who won't use my death as an excuse for drama. Come to my funeral, say goodbye, and then take care of what I've left you, knowing I was proud of you every single day, even when I didn't say it. Love, Dad. I folded the letter carefully, tucked it in my purse, and walked into the church. Marcus was waiting in the vestibule. His face went pale when he saw me. I told you not to come. And I'm here anyway. I pulled out the executor documents. As the executor of Dad's estate, and the person legally authorized to make all funeral decisions, I'm here to ensure this service honors his wishes. Is the program what Dad requested? You can't just. I can, actually. I showed him the papers. Unless you want to physically remove me and deal with the legal consequences, I suggest you let me attend my father's funeral in peace. My mother appeared, eyes red but furious. How dare you show up here after everything? After everything what, Mom? My voice stayed calm. After building a career? After marrying someone I love? After having a child? What exactly did I do that was so unforgivable you had to ban me from Dad's funeral? You left. You abandoned this family. I moved. Adults do that. And apparently Dad and I talked more in the last 2 years than you knew about. I looked at the program in her hand. This service, did Dad want a gospel choir? She blinked. What? Gospel choir, open casket, these verses from Psalms. Did Dad request any of this? Her silence was answer enough. He wanted Johnny Cash. I walked the line and hurt. He wanted the casket closed. He wanted a celebration of life, not a performance of grief. I'd read his instructions that morning. As executor, I'm authorizing those changes. I sat in the front pew. My mother tried to object, but the funeral director, who'd been briefed by Peterson, seated me there anyway. Marcus and Claire sat on the other side, their anger palpable. The service was what Dad wanted. Johnny Cash played. Friends told real stories, not sanitized memories. The pastor read the letter Dad had left about what he valued: integrity, hard work, and the courage to live authentically, even when your family didn't understand. I didn't speak. I just sat there, feeling my daughter's hand in mine. David had brought her in quietly during the first hymn, and let myself grieve the father I'd had in emails and the one I'd lost in person years before. After the service, at the burial, my mother finally spoke to me directly. "We're contesting the will. You're not getting away with this." "Contest all you want," I said quietly. "Dad had a cognitive assessment. The will is solid, and your lawyer will tell you that. He wouldn't have left you everything unless you manipulated. He left me in charge because I was the only one who didn't need his money to prove I loved him." I looked at her. "You can have the house, I'll sell it and split the proceeds. But the business stays with me, and I'm appointing professional management that actually knows how to run a construction company sustainably." "You can't." "I can. I'm the executor." Dad knew exactly what he was doing. The will contest lasted exactly 1 week before their lawyer told them to drop it. The cognitive assessment, combined with 2 years of documented email correspondence proving Dad's clear intent, made their case impossible. I did what I said I'd do. Sold the house, split the proceeds, gave Marcus and Claire their cash inheritances, generous amounts that Dad had specified. Kept the business and hired management that transformed it into South Carolina's first sustainable construction company, specializing in green building. The company doubled in revenue in the first year. Marcus, who'd been running it into the ground with outdated practices and nepotism hiring, sent one email. I guess Dad knew what he was doing. I didn't respond. Some acknowledgements come too late to matter. I found a box in Dad's office when I was cleaning out his desk at the business. Inside were printouts of every email I'd ever sent him, organized by date, little notes in his handwriting in the margins. "Proud of this one. She gets it. This is the daughter I raised." He'd been keeping a record of our relationship, separate from the family narrative. Proof that we'd been close, that I hadn't abandoned him, that the distance was geographical, not emotional. I donated the box to Emma. "This is how your grandfather really felt about your mom," I told her. "No matter what anyone else says. My relationship with my mother and siblings remains minimal. Cordial emails about business matters, holiday cards with no personal notes." The truth about Dad's will and our correspondence changed their narrative, but it didn't change their need to blame me for everything that didn't fit their perfect family picture. That's okay. I don't need their approval anymore. I had Dad's, and I have the evidence. If this story resonated, drop a comment. Where are you listening from, and have you ever been excluded from a funeral, only to discover the deceased wanted you there all along? This is Calm Verdict Stories. I'm Lauren, and this is what happens when family tries to control death the way they controlled life, and the will speaks louder than their lies. To everyone who's been told they're not welcome at a funeral, legal documents don't lie. People do. Get a lawyer. Know your rights. Show up anyway.